Thank you, Doctor. UP Cebu is ready. Dr. Gretchen Chavez, please come in. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Professor Magpantay. You ended your lecture with a lofty hope of having UP experts from various disciplines to craft a joint industrial policy. But how do we equip our national leaders, politicians, to ensure that they will be ready, able, willing to support and pursue such industrial policy? Thank you.
Actually, I really don't know how to do it, except I said that we should continue dialoguing with them and try to tell them, argue, okay, and present ideas why industrial policy is needed. But politicians have their own considerations in their decision making. The best that we can do really is conscientization. Okay, tell them what industrial policy is, the kind of problems that we face, and why we need such a policy to be able to have a society that will be able to compete globally after 25 years. But other than that, I don't know what to do. Okay, we've been doing it. We've been telling them. They've been asking us for what we think about this. I have to remember, in 1997, I drafted the industrial policy framework for the Board of Investments. I don't think anything happened out of it. Okay, supposedly it became the industrial policy of President Ramos. I don't think it was ever implemented. So the best as academics, what we can do is just continue dialoguing, okay, so that they'll be familiar with it. At the same time, we'll also learn from their perspective, and maybe we'll arrive at the correct way for industrial policy to be implemented in the country. I don't think it's going to be controversial anyway, this industrial policy. I think what will happen is that if ever they'll adopt it, and if they don't like it, then they just disregard it. Okay. But what I'm saying is that it is important for the next 25 years that we have an industrial policy on energy. I'm using energy as a takeoff point. Okay. And maybe we'll have a good experience with it, and maybe we can enlarge it later on some other areas. Okay. But as for what we do with our political leaders, generally they have their own agenda, so, and we can't.
All right. Thank you, Doctor. UP Open University is ready. Professor Diego Maranan, please come in. Good afternoon.
Magandang hapon. Baka rin na yung question na ito, tatanong ko pa rin. If you could name top 3 individuals that you wish could respond to your presentation, who would they be, and do you expect one? Sama.
Would you like me to read it, sir?
Yes.
All right. The question was also sent via Skype. Name the top 3 people or institutions that you think should issue a response to the presentation that you just gave, notwithstanding the usual suspects like PGMA.
No, it's not a question of them responding. Okay, that something like I made an allegation here and they should respond. Okay, and refute what I said. I think the idea is to move forward. Okay, so it is for us to have a dialogue so that we could arrive at an agreement. Okay, especially in this day and age, so that we could have an agreement to push for industrial policy. I think today, with the experiences happening now in the U.S. and Europe and other countries because of the financial crisis, we see the excesses of a completely free market. Then I think industrial policy is easier to sell. Okay, so it is not a question of I raised some points and they should respond. Okay, they don't have to respond if they don't want to. Our hope is that they'll be able to. The units that I cited will be able to agree with the others to sit down and propose an industrial policy for energy development. Okay. They don't have to answer to what I said. Okay. If you're thinking of the School of Economics, no, they don't have to respond to what I said. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Besides, I like that school. Huh? I like the School of I like the School of Economics. Really, look at the university. There are only 2 units in the university that promote scholarship really, like it's College of Science and the School of Economics. Okay. In terms of publications and so forth, the School of Economics very early on emphasized, in terms of scholarship, the School of Economics very early on emphasized scholarship. Okay. Two is that, look at the School of Economics. Okay, they always come up with position papers, white papers, responding to present problems. I like that. It's enlightening. It helps us. Okay, they're not afraid of issuing their position on these topics. And three, the fact that school, okay, emphasizes the neoliberal free market in this university full of activists. I think it speaks highly of the school. Okay, they don't mind being opposite to the rest of the campus. Okay, I think that's intellectual honesty. Okay, so it's not a question of okay, may ni-raise, sumagot kayo. May raise, hindi ka na yun eh. Okay, my point here is that okay, for the next 25 years, these things are the problem we're going to face is too important that we should come up with an industrial policy for energy development. And in terms of expertise and their specializations, I think those are the colleges that should be involved in the drafting of industrial policy for the country. Okay, on energy. Okay, on energy.
Thank you, Doctor. I see UP Baguio is ready. Professor Ian Agulo, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Magpantay. In China, they have policies that encourage students who take their PhDs abroad to return to their countries. In addition, they have a workforce that is incomparable to no other country. On the other hand, our workforce are abroad working, while our students prefer to work immediately after they graduate. Some of our PhDs are not returning as well. This is certainly not a sign of us Filipinos joining forces. How do you think can we address this problem?
No, we don't address the problem. I don't think you could impose a condition that they shouldn't leave. Okay, the thing to do is just produce a lot more people so that by natural selection, some will stay, some will go, some will stay, some will go. Okay, and in the future, what will happen is that if the country is doing a lot better, they will naturally come back, just like what happened in India. Okay, if you look at in the case of India, up to 1989, they kept on all of them left. When India opened its economy, the mid-1990s, then the economy improved. Naturally, they came back. So the same thing here. Okay? I don't think you could ever say you could impose a policy that will tell students to, when you finish, okay, you stay, you work here for the first 5 years. Suppose that guy is really good, okay, and his natural place to be is Harvard. And then you tell him, no, you work in the National Institute of Physics with Jose Magpantay. Kawawa naman. Okay? You can't do that. Okay?
Thank you. Since we are running out of time, we will entertain the last question inside the auditorium. Do I see any hand? Yes, sir.
I don't know.
Microphone is right over there, sir.
I'm Rafael Rodriguez from the College of Business. When we talk about targeting certain industries, you emphasize the importance of the College of Science and Engineering producing the manpower that would be needed by these industries. But the experience in advanced countries says that it needs more than just the supply of manpower. If you look, for example, at Stanford, which we visited, their research in microelectronics to a greater extent than private sector support comes from the government. So in this country, we're even in a worse situation because I don't think any R&D support will come from the private sector. How do we add that component to the policy such that when we produce the manpower, when we have the laboratories, there will be the funding necessary to ensure that work on these technologies, pre-competitive technologies, I think is what government-supported R&D is called in advanced countries, will take place so that, like in Silicon Valley, the private sector is attracted to enter and develop the technology after the government had already paid the price, so to speak, of the initial work in that area.
Yeah, it's a question of what comes first. Actually now, it's not a problem. These guys, the colleges of science and engineering, are awash with money. Believe me, they have lots of money for the research projects. Okay. The question is, for example, in the ERDT, they targeted certain technologies to be developed. Okay. They even had a human development component, 112 PhDs, and then 500 masters and so on. Well, they'll be producing the people. They have certain problems to work on. The question is, so that's a supply push. There's a lot of supply push being done now. The question now is, will industry go in and try to make these technologies, knowledge developed in these colleges, and take them to the market? That is the part that's the issue now. Okay, that's why I think that's the first industrial policy that we should discuss. Okay, there is that park there which you built. Okay, that park is at this stage mostly BPOs, but I hope that it will move in the direction of housing all these innovations. So maybe part of the deal is how do we get settlers in that park to link up with the people in the colleges of science and engineering with the kind of technologies that they identified to develop. Okay? Pero hindi na yun, it's no longer the problem of we're putting this money, no one's working. Today, okay, kind of money that the College of Science and the ERDT project is getting, they have money to develop areas. It's how you get them out for people in industry to come in and link up and make use of this technologies.
I'm not sure that the grant to the College of Science and Engineering, as large as it is for a long time. I think it's a one-shot deal, and I think advances in R&D require these are multi-year efforts.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's the best that we have, so these guys have to prove something. That they should prove that they're worth getting more grants, they're receiving more grants, okay? They have to show it. You cannot go to the government and say, support me for the next 15 years. Hindi ganun gobyerno natin, it's yearly budgeting and so forth. Okay, so, well, the fact that they're getting the money means it is a good start. They just have to justify that they deserve getting more. The problem now is how to get whatever they will be developing outside to be used by the private sector. So that means you need investors, okay, locally that will look at the technologies to be developed in the ERDT project and in the College of Science. Once that happens, I think we're okay. It's not as big as what we had in what we saw in Stanford. You know, Stanford is fantastic, but they're more advanced, and the state of California provides half the money. So if we could have that mechanism, maybe it will work.
We have one last question from Dean Saloma.